Welcome to the HVAC Guide for Homeowners YouTube live show where we talk about all things HVAC that no one else is talking about, answering your questions live. Sometimes we are joined by other pros in the chat who might have answers to questions that I don't. And finally, we have breakout segments where we go over funny clips, industry news, and goofy inventions. Tonight's show should be a fun show. We have a special guest. It's actually our first returning guest, Larry Mason from the Home Rapid Repair YouTube channel. Larry was such a fun guest the last time that we decided to have him back. We will be doing our traditional format where we talk about the news in the HVAC world, share some tips, answer some questions, and have some fun segments. But we will have Larry join us throughout to make it more fun. If you're not already a subscriber to Larry's channel, make sure to go do that. But before we get the show started, with a tragic story in the news, let's take a moment to pay the bills and thank the sponsor for our show. I wanted to take a quick break from the video and thank the sponsor of this video, AeroSeal. Leaky ductwork is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, energy wasters in most homes in the United States. And my favorite way of fixing that problem is AeroSeal. They'll come into your home, they'll test your ductwork and how leaky it is, they'll seal all the ductwork with a machine, and then they'll test it again and make sure that you got what you paid for. Customers have reported a significant savings on their energy bills after using AeroSeal. I'll put a link down in the description of this video. Thanks again to AeroSeal, and now let's get back to the video. Now that we've paid the bills, let's bring up tonight's guest. You know him from the awesome YouTube channel, Home Rapid Repair, Larry Mason. Let's go.
Let's go. Thank you. That's awesome. Josh didn't tell me he was doing that little graphic. That's pretty cool. Exciting. I'll try to live up to that excitement. How's everybody doing tonight?
That's not a graphic, Larry. Those people really all crowded outside tonight, and they wanted to see you on tonight's show.
Fantastic. If it was my house, I think my wife would have told me, but I don't know.
She would have called the cops.
She would have called the cops by now. We're being squatted. Is that what it's called?
I watched a crazy documentary a few weeks ago on the Woodstock, the second Woodstock or third Woodstock, I guess it was the third one. And how crazy it was, and insane. I mean, man,
insane. I've watched a couple of those. Insane. Like I was born in 1972. To look back at what those people did in the 60s is insane. They had no motels, no food, no water, no place to go to the bath. Like how did they think this was all going to work? Kind of a disaster, but everybody pitched in, and somehow it worked out, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you seen that documentary I'm talking about on Netflix?
I saw the black and white original one, the one that was the remake. I think I saw parts of it. I think I saw parts of it.
Yeah.
I love documentaries. I love History Channel, all that stuff.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Well, before we go any further, tonight's show, I actually had it on the thumbnail. I want to talk about a tragic story in the HVAC industry that I came across. And let me see if I can get this pulled up here. Present. Make sure I'm pulling up the right one here. This story comes out of Tucson, Arizona. And this is just a fella doing his job. And unfortunately led to a lot of folks, they do what we do, Larry, and they go to work every day, and they don't think about how dangerous some of the things that we're doing, how it really is. So I'm just going to read through this real quick. And just a real sad story here. It says, tragic death of a Tucson HVAC professional has led to some of the most serious fines in the Industrial Commission can levy against a business for workplace safety violations. In July, Dalton Lee was installing an air conditioning unit at Spreading Threads, a nonprofit clothing bank that helps foster children. Lee was a constant supporter of the organization and didn't hesitate to help, according to Spreading Threads. He's the kind of person you want in your community. An investigation from the Arizona Division of Occupational Safety and Health found that Lee was electrocuted while installing an AC unit on the roof after the crane used to lift it touched a live power wire. Now, the crazy thing about this tragic story, I want to show you guys, is the next little part here. The crane operator, DC Crane LLC, was found to be negligent by being too close to the power lines without having the power turned off. ADOSH also discovered that there was no record of required annual inspections of the crane, and the lift used for the AC unit was frayed and cut in several places. ADOSH presented its findings to the Industrial Commission, which decided to fine DC Crane more than $32,000, and a very rare move issued an additional $25,000 that goes to Lee's family, which, I mean, isn't enough, but at least they did that, right? For the first time ever, Dalton Lee's mother, father, and sister sat down for an interview with news, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, so just real tragic story that it's goes on to talk more about his family and so on, but just a tragic story, Larry. Obviously it's sad, but it sounds to me like it could have been very much prevented had these folks been doing their job correctly.
I'm around contractors and workers all the time, and I think generally they're men. I think the longer men are in trades, they start to cut corners, they don't take it as serious as they once did. Now, in that story, it was the crane's fault, so the cooling guy, HVAC guy, had no idea. But it's something that needs to be talked about more all the time. What safety on the job site, what does it entail, what are going to be the limits? My oldest son just passed his builder's license exam fairly recently, so a few days ago we were putting up a aluminum extension ladder to get onto somebody's roof, and I was less than 10 feet to the overhead electrical line, and he mentioned something about, because he had just read it. He said, well, the code says you can't put a conductive ladder this close, and I don't even remember it because I passed that test 24 years ago. But it was a good reminder that, they're teaching the young people this stuff. You need to remember it, and the rules and codes are all there for a reason, for sure.
That's a good point. People become jaded after a while. That's a really good point. Little trivia about me. I actually went to school to be an electrician and worked for an electrical company for the first 5 years of my adult life. And the company I worked for, we did not use aluminum ladders. All the ladders had to be fiberglass, including the big heavy ones. And if it was such a long, distance that you needed to, that a fiberglass ladder was just going to be simply too heavy, then we had to get a bucket truck or something. That we did not use aluminum ladders.
Yeah, no, quick tip for homeowners that are driving around, and when you see your work vans, if the ladders up top are fiberglass, they're always electricians inside, for sure. And then if they're aluminum, they're probably painters or just roofers or whatever. But yeah, when they're fiberglass and they're more expensive, they're heavier, they're definitely electricians, and they're taking the safety very, very important, for sure.
I want to take a second to say hello to some of our guests here, folks in our chat. I didn't actually get to do a show last week, so I definitely appreciate those of you that. I mean, it's been a weird couple months. I mean, I think 2 weeks ago we had to have a Wednesday night show, or maybe that was 3 weeks ago. And then last week I was on a cruise, actually. And then, it's just been crazy, but, hello to Steve, Kathy. I'm not sure if I've seen Kathy's name pop up on our channel before. So welcome to the show. Arch, Steve pointed out it's an amazing document. It really is. It's quite interesting because I like documentaries as well. I love history. I love documentaries, but that Woodstock one, I would have been in high school during that, I think, or just out of high school when it happened, and the craziness that went on. I'm not going to get into too much of it, but it's a very interesting documentary.
Yeah.
So,
in modern times, if we left the house without our cell phone, we would consider that taking a risk, unsafe. You know, who are we going to call? How are we going to call if we? Those kids had nothing. No GPS, no cell phone, nobody to call for help. They run out of
That's a
gas,
good
they're
point.
hoofing it to the nearest gas station. Yeah, it's
Yeah, that's a
totally
good
different
point.
world. We're a slave to our cell phones a little bit. We won't go anywhere without them.
Yeah, because some of the stuff that went on probably wouldn't have gone on because there would have been 30 other kids with their phones out recording it, you know?
Agreed. It
So,
is funny, generational. I think if they don't record it, they feel like it didn't happen, right? Like I like to kind of live in the moment if I'm at a concert or a theater and just watch, right? And boy, those less than what 30, less than 25-year-olds, if they don't record it, I honestly feel like they think they didn't experience it. They have to record everything. It's a
yeah,
different world.
it is. It definitely is. Arch says that he's the one that sent me that article. So thank you to Arch. The install was done very early in the morning and lack of daylight might have been a factor. Oh, that's so sad. He had helped that nonprofit quite a bit, and it's indeed a tragedy. Very much, very much. Gary, hello to Gary. Hello to Ryan. Do you hear that, Larry?
No, I don't believe so. No, it's clean on my end.
I hear the oddest noise outside of my window.
Uh-oh.
That's live shows for you. I don't know what that was. It sounded like, I don't know. Sounded like a squealing bird, maybe. I don't know.
Oh no.
So, Arch says he made sure to get a fiberglass ladder.
Smart man.
So very smart. I don't know what that is, but it's freaking me out.
Yeah, I don't think your mic's picking it up. So if you stand up and start running, we'll know something's wrong.
Yeah, it's coming through the window. Ryan says the Atmosfera is overheating based on the set point temp. I have to set it at 66 degrees just for it to maintain 70. It runs and blows warm unstop unless I interfere to turn it down. Interesting. The contractor is coming tomorrow and we'll have a Daikin rep online. According to the app, the temp readings on the unit are all way off by 4 to 5 degrees, different than my separate room T-stat. Interesting. Well, hopefully they get you straight there, Ryan.
I'm sure he has modern equipment. You know, in the old days, we'll go into a house and they still had that Honeywell round. The old guys remember this, the Honeywell round with the mercury floating on top. Those things were so reliable, they will never break. They're actually not mechanical in a way. It's a floating point of mercury. If they got a little bit off, like in this description of Ryan, if they were off by a few degrees, I would pop that cover off. Usually that was ugly gold color. I'd pop that cover off. I would blow on the mercury and it would clear enough dust so the contacts were good again. The on and the off contacts were good
really
again. Snap that in and you're good for 20 more years. That thing,
Larry,
was
you would
beast.
You would have struggled or strangled me. I had a guy that used to he would always try to teach me how to adjust the armature on those and how to set and all this stuff. And he'd get so aggravated with me because I'd pull them off the wall and slap a digital one every time. So,
and I get it. I mean, they are very dated. They had to be installed level. Otherwise they would be off. So you had to maintain that. And yeah, they couldn't have so much dust that the contacts were not a good electrical signal. Other than that, they'll go forever, man. Those things were a beast.
Yeah. I don't remember the circumstances, but I remember having one of them because you talk about how it needs to be level because of the bubble, right?
Yep.
And I remember taking one and making it unlevel so it stayed on, but I don't remember why. I'm drawing a blank on what the circumstances.
It could have been like a new construction or renovation or a drywall job.
Yeah,
we'll walk into these houses with a new drywall job,
or maybe I made it unlevel to where it couldn't turn on at all because I don't remember, but whatever it was, I just remember doing that one time for one reason or another.
I don't know if you remember, I'm from Michigan and we'll walk into these houses with new drywall jobs and, you know, it's colder than hell outside and they're trying to dry this mud real quick so they can do the 3 coats as fast as humanly possible. They'll hot wire, what is it? The white and the red, whatever one you want it to turn on. They'll just hot wire that and the furnace will run nonstop. So you walk in that house, it's 95 freaking degrees. Sounds dangerous to me. I'm not the one responsible, but somebody did it.
Arch says you weren't even born. I think he's talking about the Woodstock. I am not talking about the very, very first Woodstock. Apparently there's been several now. There's been at least 3, I think. There was one in the
original was
60s,
in the 60s. Yep.
and then there was one in I think the early 90s, and then there was one in around 2002-ish, I think was that. And that's the one that I'm talking about, the documentary on Netflix, and the craziness that happened during that one. So Ryan says, should I have a separate thermostat installed to control the mini split instead of relying on the internal thermostat in the unit, which I think is not reading correctly? I mean, that's up to you, Ryan. I think that, I mean, it depends on the setup that you have. Can you install a Daikin 1 and be an external thermostat? Yes. But if you're talking about one of those thermostats like the Cielo, I think is how you pronounce the name, or the Flare, Puck, or one of those, and I know Honeywell had the D6. Those thermostats act just like a remote control. So they're acting like a thermostat, but then when you adjust it and it sends a signal to the unit, it's still acting just like the remote control would, and the unit is still operating as if it would with the remote control. So
Josh, is the temperature being sampled at the wall unit or at the remote control? Where's it being taken from? Probably the remote.
No, I would say 90% of the time the unit itself.
Oh, so it's going to be off because it's on at least my state, it's on an exterior cold wall, so it's going to be off.
It could be. Yeah, that's a really good point. If they didn't seal that hole behind the unit when they installed it, that could also throw off the readings.
I don't know if you recall, we don't have a ton of mini splits, but when I do see them with the remotes and the up and down dials or thermostat, I always assumed it was from the device, but then it'd probably kill the battery like in short order, I'm sure, if they put it over there.
Yeah. Yep. I want to take just a moment, Larry, if I could. And I want to tell a quick story. So when we were going on our cruise last week, I had a moment coming back on the airplane. Let me actually show you how can I do this? Share screen. I think I could do it like this. Can you see this? So you see my phone right here with this guy looking out a car window.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is me. So I actually was sitting on the airplane. I was holding my phone up watching this horrible movie, by the way. I don't even remember what it was called, but it was some movie. And there I am on the plane, and this couple behind me handed me this device. So if you look in this picture, they handed me, they're called cell gel mounts. Now they have not sponsored my channel or anything. They just kindly handed these to me for free. They're the creators of this product. And I was able to stick them to the seat, and it held my phone while I was on the airplane and watched this movie.
Now, what's the mechanism? A double stick tape? How's it stuck up there?
So I'm glad you asked, because there's some magic here. I don't know what the magic is, but there is some sort of magic here. And that is, let me switch here. So stop sharing that. And again, they have not sponsored our channel. They did kindly give this product to me, and I'm going to kindly put an affiliate link in the chat
Nice.
to the Amazon. But it's okay, so hopefully you can see this. This is the product. And so it's got the stickiness on the back of the product that's like a gel, and it's sticky and it's reusable. And if it ever gets dirty, you just clean it with some water.
Wow.
They were telling me you just kind of clean it a little bit, and then it becomes sticky again. And it was just a really
check
cool
out
product.
these up and coming.
Yeah,
Can you
super
see this,
smart.
Larry?
And yeah, and you can use it more than just airplanes. You can use it anywhere. in the shower. I never would have thought of that.
So that is the product, and I just told them when they were nice enough to just gift them to me. It has nothing to do with heating and air, but I just told them that I would share their product on my live show, and so if any of you out there are interested in buying this product, I'll put a link here in the chat, and you know, I don't know, just it was just kind of cool. They saw me holding my phone and they handed me these, and it comes in this little box here. And like I say, they're reusable. So I'm going to be reusing them, and thought I would share that. So
I don't know if you're like me. Whenever I see a good product, I feel stupid. Like, why didn't I come up with that? Like,
I know,
it's so
right?
simple, right? It's so simple.
Why didn't I think of putting sleeves on a blanket and calling it the Snuggie and becoming a millionaire?
I think they sold like $100 million worth of those units, the Snuggie. Yeah, that one.
Yep.
The squatty potty. Have you ever heard of that story?
The snotty potty? No, what is that?
Squatty potty. It's
yes.
Yeah, all it is a plastic device for your toilet. They sold like $100 million worth of this stuff. This is plastic. Unbelievable. And you know where they started running ads, Josh? YouTube.
Where's that?
paid videos on YouTube. That's where they started the campaign, and then eventually it went to QVC and all that. But it actually started on YouTube.
Is that the one that didn't it have a commercial with like a unicorn? And what's the product? There was a product, and it was like it would have rainbows coming from your hiney or something.
That might be poopery.
Oh,
it's a concentrated liquid. Yeah, I see that in a lot of people's homes during home inspection. So people are buying it. I see it a lot.
Yeah,
It's still around. Yeah, that's a good product too. Hopefully it doesn't kill your septic system.
Yeah, just crazy. Yeah. And these folks live local to me, so
nice.
Shout out to them, and thank you for the free gift. Ryan says, in good news, I received the free Daikin air purifier. So we I don't know if you knew, Larry, but did you see my giveaway show where I was giving away products?
Not the whole thing. Yeah, partly. I think I put my name in for something. Hey, I do remember that.
Yeah. So we have 50,000 subscribers, did a giveaway, and Ryan won a free Daikin air purifier, which is pretty cool.
Nice. That's fantastic.
Steve says it might be reading temp at indoor unit and not remote thermostat. Easy programming fix. Arch said, I had the old Mercury thermostat replaced, and HVAC tech's friend wanted, for some reason or another, it saved me having to figure out to safely dispose of it. Yeah, I wonder how many people don't safely. Luckily, one of my supply houses, we could always turn them in to dispose of them, but it just makes you wonder, where are these things going? I'm still hearing this crazy noise. Ryan says, I was going to use the Daikin one light. Just frustrating that I have to play with the temperature all day to be comfortable. I wonder, Ryan, if Larry hit the nail on the head. I wonder if that hole behind the unit needs to be sealed up better, and it's throwing off your readings.
Yeah. Because that would vary depending on the outdoor temperatures, the wind direction, a lot of things. It could change from time to time.
Yeah. It would certainly give you some wonky temperatures if that unit is needing to, operate by the temperatures that it is seeing. So
did you, Josh, install more mini splits or furnaces in your career?
Well, I would say of those two, probably more furnaces, but we installed more conventional heat pump systems than anything. I'm in Virginia, so we see a whole lot of heat pumps. The only areas that we don't see heat pumps installed are folks that live in a city and have access to inexpensive natural gas. Then a lot of those folks will do straight ACs.
We're all on natural gas. Now, did the heat pump have a backup? Like,
yeah, so they'll
okay,
a lot of them will have electric backup.
okay. It gets too cold and you need something. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
We're mostly natural gas. If you're rural, you're on propane furnace. Occasionally, I'll find a real old school 1950s home with electric heat coils in the ceilings, like no gas, all electric, crazy high utility bills. Those are going away quickly. But we don't have a lot of heat pumps. Mini splits are catching up, like for additions, lake properties. I haven't seen them in new construction yet, I don't think. But yeah, they're definitely, we see more and more of them all the time. I wish I actually knew more about them. The actual blower in the wall, do you guys refer to those as heads?
That's what I call them.
That's what you, okay.
Yeah.
I heard a HVAC guy say that, and I go, I wonder if that's the legit name. And 3 or 4 to 1 unit is mostly going to be the max rating, right?
Well, it just depends. I mean, that used to be true, but they make units now that you can install up to 9 heads on one
Holy
outdoor unit.
cow. I've
Yeah,
not seen that yet.
the Daikin VRV Life has a setup that you can do 9, which is crazy.
That is incredible to think that. Yeah. The very first time I ever saw one, it was a lake house that used to have forced air, but it was poorly designed and they had an addition, and the mini splits was the way that solved the problem. Finally they got comfort. Each room had its own temperature. Beautiful. It solved all the problems.
Nice. Bernie has a squatty potty, by the way.
Fantastic.
Got it as a gift.
They have sold millions of those things.
I don't know if I want to actually hear the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it. Bernie, if you could just tell us, is it worth it? I mean, do you notice a difference when you use it? I'm just curious. So, Larry, I'm going to change subjects here. We're going to break away from the chat here. And you were sharing with me before we got started, you had a video hit 100,000 views recently, which, by the way, congrats.
Thank you.
And it was on this wonderful product.
Not non-sponsored content. So WD-40, for those that don't know in the chat, it kind of has a mythical, it's seen as the fix-it, the do-it-all solution that you keep in your garage, you keep in your toolbox, and it can literally fix everything. So I'm on the WD-40 manufacturer's website right now, and just listen to the short list of stuff that they claim it can solve. Removes tar, removes gunk, removes scuffs, marks, of course, removes rust, protects outdoor furniture, loosens rust, nuts, bolts, protects tools, removes gum. Now, this one I tried, removes crayons and markers from walls. That worked fantastic. It took it off first try. Duct tape, residue, sticky substances, wax removal, and it actually goes on to another 100. So if you get bored, go on YouTube or Google and type in uses for WD-40 or even strange uses for WD-40, and you will get some of the most outlandish stuff that people, kills bugs, kills termites, everything. So we said, you know what, let's start making a couple videos to test some of these and see if they're actually working. And I think half did, half didn't, or like the one that says remove sticky residue. Everybody knows of a product called Goo Gone. It smells like citrus. So I wanted to know if it was better or worse. And yeah, it's neat. I think we'll make more fun videos like that from time to time. For those that don't know, I primarily do home improvement and how-to videos on replacing a toilet, fixing a light fixture, replacing a broken outlet, things like that. Real practical do-it-yourself type stuff. But every once in a while, doing a broad topic, fun topic, like what can WD-40 do? Somebody said I should start testing duct tape. Like, how strong is duct tape? What are the best types of duct tape? There's a lot of different choices out there. So I think Josh, thanks for asking. I think we'll have more fun with stuff like that from time to time.
I remember somebody told me one time that WD-40 was originally invented because it was some sort of fish oil or something like that. And this is probably one of the things you were talking about, one of the old wives' tales, but that it would be a I don't know the word I'm looking for, but basically a deterrent for pests such as pigeons, because they hated the smell of it so bad. And this old timer told me that. In fact, we were working for a company. It was a property management company. I did the heating and air there, but he had taken me up in the attic and he was spraying WD-40 in this attic of this old building because the
Yeah,
pigeons
I've
kept
seen
getting
people
up
do.
there.
So the name WD-40 stands for water displacement, and they say it was the 40th solution. So apparently, I think it was invented like 100 years ago. They tested 39 other formulations that they weren't happy with, and they discarded, and they went with number 40. Gary's comment there, WD-40 is a solvent and will evaporate. Depending on the use case, I would say, yeah, it's not as good as, like, say you were lubing up garage door commercial rollers, heavy duty stuff. For something like that, it's probably too lightweight and it's not going to stay there long enough. But for some things, it's relatively cheap. It definitely pays, I think, for everybody to have a can of it in your toolbox under your kitchen sink or, you know, your garage, your basement. It does a lot. We have some rusty tools. We're going to experiment with that one soon. I don't know. It's been fun. We'll keep playing with it, I think.
It's flammable too, isn't it?
Oh, yes. I'm
Yeah,
sure.
because
I haven't tested that. I'm pretty sure it would go up if you light it.
I think it's flammable at least in the event that we had, when I used to work for an electrical company, we would put that 3-in-1 oil in some of the motors or
Yep.
whatever it's
That's a
called.
penetrating oil, I believe. Yep.
And that was to lubricate the motors themselves. And there was a guy there that was squirting WD-40 in there instead, and they caught on fire.
Oh, no.
That it was a big deal. So that's when I learned, you know,
Yep.
you don't
I'm
need
reading
it
the
for that.
safety warnings and I don't see. Oh, there it is. Content will burst into flames in big bold letters. Yes. Yes.
That's pretty self-explanatory there. Back to our chat. Gary says the MHK2 bypasses the internal temperature sensor completely. Turned my Mitsubishi split system into a completely different animal. The auto fan works like it never did with the old remote. Josh, I sent you pics. I'll have to look at that later. Ryan says, I didn't win the contest. I got the Daikin air purifier because I bought the Daikin atmosphere. Oh, nice. Oh, okay. All right. Sorry, Ryan. I didn't have the list of people that won things, but that's even better. So you took advantage of that program that Daikin had. I don't have that link in front of me, but for anyone that remembers, Daikin had, I assume it's still going, that they would give away a Daikin air purifier with an Atmosphera. And then I think if you didn't buy an Atmosphera, but you bought some of the other ductless products, you could at least get a discount. I think it was a $250 discount, if I remember correctly. So check that out. Again, I don't have it right in front of me, but if any of you are interested, just remind me. Just send me an email. Send me an email to. In fact, I'll put it down here. HVAC Guide 1. If you are interested in that program, and I'll send you the link. Ryan says I'll ask them to look at everything, including the hole in the wall. Yeah, because that would make a difference there. Gary says Mitsubishi up to 9. Also, friend of mine down the street has 5 on his 48,000 BTU outdoor unit.
Yeah, I've not seen above 4 in my area, but that's good to know that they can go that large.
Some of them do have a cap, you know. Well, they all have a cap, I guess. You can't put 100 of them.
Right.
But yeah, I remember seeing that you could put 9 on the VRV Life, but it's still, I mean, if you do the math, 9 times 6,000 BTUs. I mean, you're running over the capacity anyway. So it's not like you're going to get full capacity out of all of those. What is that? 54,000 BTUs. So yeah, I guess you could, if you did it on a 5-ton, then I guess you would get full capacity. So, and I don't know why 9 would be your cap then, because I guess, but if you did the math, you'd be able to get 10, right? If I'm doing my math right. I don't know. I just remember 9 being the capability of the VRV Life at one point. I don't even think I have 9 rooms in my entire house. So it's somewhere around that.
It sounds like you're pushing the limits on a 100-degree day. You want it to cool, man.
Ryan says, what is the required R value in Michigan for walls and insulating the ceiling? Do you know
Yes,
that?
good question. I believe I do. For new construction, minimum in the ceilings is R30. So if it's a fiberglass rolled bed, and R30 is about 9 inches, maybe 9.25 inches. A lot of people do spray in cellulose. And then for exterior walls, the minimum I believe is going to be an R13, which is a fiberglass bat that fits nicely in a 2x4 stud. If you build with 2x6 walls, you're going to get a whole bunch more insulation in there. So that's smart to do. But yeah, our walls are R13 minimum and our ceiling attics are R30 minimum. Now, if you go to like owenscorning.com and you go to the insulation contractors or the manufacturers, for our zone, they will recommend like an R60, an R70.
wow.
They want to sell you the stuff, which is fine. You're going to save utility costs, so it makes sense. But yeah, minimum is not that great. R30 isn't fantastic.
Well, I
And I'm
thought
sorry, I cut you off.
a builder told me, and not that long. I mean, let me back up. He told me a while back, not that long ago. So a while ago, I mean, we're talking probably 4 or 5 years ago, that Virginia was switching to, they were changing the code that residential homes had to have 2x6 walls because of the
Michigan have
insulation.
not done that down there. I'm sure there are some states doing that. And yes, the benefit in theory, so a 16-inch stud wall by 2x4, if you go 2x6, Josh, you have a thicker wall, you can do more insulation. Also, you can spread those studs out. So your additional building cost isn't necessarily outrageous. It's not like it's 50% more, because you can go then wider with those studs because they're stronger. But yeah, a thicker wall means more insulation, better for the environment, better for the occupants. So I'm sure that is coming down the pike at some point, but Michigan is still just minimum 2x4 R13. Ryan says, do you like mineral wool or walk wool insulation compared to blown or spray and foam? The wool products are good. The spray and foam, I think, is the absolute best. Now, if you get bored, you can Google some horror stories of spray foam. You want to make sure your contractor is experienced with it, that they are insured for it, and that they have had training for it. Because there's a lot of things that can go wrong with that. If they have the mixture off, it does off gas for a small period of time, so you have to leave the job site. There are stories, you don't know if it's 1 in a million or more prevalent, but where homeowners have gotten sick with spray and foam. So there are some, just I think, questions you want to ask with spray foam. But as a product, it's fantastic. It's going to be your best R factor. It's going to stop all air movement, which is good. You're not going to need a vapor barrier at all. It is your vapor barrier because it's completely stopping the air movement. So spray and foam is the absolute best if you can afford it. Some homeowners won't be able to afford it because that's a lot of money. But it's a fantastic. I had my basement spray foamed when I finished it off. It was just unfinished basement, poured concrete foundation. After the framing, brought in an insulator and said, let's quote this compared to traditional. If it was traditional, I was just going to do it myself. You just staple up fiberglass bats. It's not rocket science, but we paid the extra and we did spray and foam, and it's fantastic. It's the way to go.
So the horror stories you're talking about are pretty much mostly
they've been
breathing.
National stories. I don't know anybody personally that has shared. So I think it's more like the 1 in a million, the oddball case. But there's been some stories where like a contractor didn't have the mixture right. And then when the family moved in, it was off gassing. So you had a certain amount of like, I don't want to say toxins, VOCs, volatile organic compounds, VOCs, into the air. And the people may have been susceptible to that. And then they later got significant health problems. And in the end, they had to pay to have all that insulation removed and go with something else. So it was astronomical expensive. I'm sure they probably sued the contractor and all that. And then it took 2 years to get settled out. But I have heard of a few horror stories. I would put it in my house. I do think it's a great, great product. It's significantly more expensive than traditional insulation, but I think the benefits are worth it. And certainly with jurisdictions now requiring more and more insulation all the time, it's long-term, it will be the go-to option that everybody will just do spray and foam at some point.
Ryan beat me to it. I actually, we've talked about it in videos on our YouTube channel, where I think that some of these newer technologies of building, such as spray foam, but anything and everything that makes the house tighter, such as encapsulating the crawl spaces, turning the attic into a conditioned attic, any sort of um, not just R value, but just tightness of the home. Anytime you're affecting the envelope of that home, I think it should just be an automatic code from the get go that they have to add more ventilation, or at least some.
Yes.
You know?
So I'm not an expert in HVAC like you are, but in Michigan, when they build new, yeah, they're having to do sealant under the sill plate. They're having to insulate the foundation. I mean, the houses are definitely getting tighter and tighter all the time. But for the forced air, they are doing a 6-inch fresh air intake. They're actually doing two, as far as I can tell. They're doing a 6-inch intake into the cold air return, and they're doing another one that just drops right into the furnace room. It's just a 6-inch round that goes right into the furnace room. It just hangs there. And then the homeowner asked me, why isn't that connected? The guy didn't do his job. I said, no, that's all it's doing. It's balancing the air. So your furnace room and your water heater are not starving for oxygen. It's letting that air come in as it needs to, as it's consuming it. So we see that in new construction. I don't know exactly how the code reads as far as when they do that, when they don't do that, but we do see it in new construction a lot, where they do
Yeah.
bring in those fresh air ducts.
VOCs is not talked about enough. I've got a guy that lives close to us that he couldn't even stay in his house, that he was getting headaches. He had a guy come and install cable at his house, and the guy had headache before he got out of the crawl space. And it
Wow.
all boiled down to the company that encapsulated the crawl space did not do any sort of ventilation. And all's I later talked to him. It wasn't that long ago. Um, we were talking about it, and he's like, "Yeah, I finally fixed it." I said, "What was the fix?" He said, "I ripped the encapsulation apart. I
Yeah.
made the foundation vents breathe again,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden, I don't have the issues anymore."
Exactly.
And
What's the point of having a tight house if you're having health issues? In one of my contracts, it says that I'm not liable for the presence of urea formaldehyde insulation, formaldehyde. So on my little bit of research with this was door-to-door salesmen in the 1950s, maybe into the 60s a little bit as well, selling insulation. They would drill into your siding and they would pump insulation into the walls. Well, guess what, Josh? It off-gassed VOCs and who knows what else into the house. And for years, people were getting sick and having health problems. So it was seen as never do this again. Then come along the 2000s, and spray and foam insulation started to become all the rage, and we see it everywhere. And I'm thinking, oh my God, it's the formaldehyde insulation story all over again. Now, luckily, it's a totally different formulation. I actually want to learn more about it, and I'd like to compare it on my channel from time to time. There's one called closed cell, and there's one called open cell, and they're a little bit different. But overall, as far as I can tell, it's an excellent product. I would trust it in my house with my wife and adult children. Well, one's not an adult yet. So yeah, I think it's a good product. I think we'll continue to see more and more of it all the time.
Emery asked, "What's the highest efficiency R value?" Do you know that?
Um, it would be infinite. So R value is simply more insulation. The higher the R value, the more insulation you have. So in theory, it could be infinite. You could go as high as you want. In theory, like in an attic, there would be diminishing returns. If you start talking about R factor of 150 and it's 5 feet deep of insulation, there would be a diminishing return there where you're just wasting your money and you're not going to get any more ahead. I've probably never heard in my state of higher than like an R70 in an attic, which was substantial. It's like 2 feet of nothing but insulation.
Yeah,
That's
that was going to be my question. What's the
that's a
highest you've heard of?
yeah, we're around there. Yeah, 2 feet deep. That's a lot. That's a lot of insulation.
Garth says 3-in-1 is non-detergent oil. That's what motor bearings require. Yeah, they actually make an oil for that, right? I mean, it's for motors, So shooting some of these other types of lubricants in there, especially when you talk about ones like WD-40 that are flammable, they're not
Yep.
interchangeable, Ryan is asking me a question that I have gotten multiple times, And I've heard different verbiages used. Jumper boots. I've heard them called jump ducts. Do y'all have that there, Larry? Do you know what he's talking
Can
about?
you describe what a jumper duct is?
As I understand it, we don't have it here in Virginia. I've never seen it in a house here in Virginia that I can think of, except for maybe, I don't know, maybe once. But the theory, I believe, is instead of running a return in every single room of the house, instead they install these jump ducts that tie the one room to another, so that way there never is any negative or positive pressure in a room. So in other words, when you close the door, you don't have supply ducts dumping air in there without return air being pulled out. So they install these jump ducts from one room to another.
In new construction, I've never seen that. In new construction, every room has a return except for kitchens and bathrooms, which is obvious. You wouldn't want the orders going everywhere. In old homes, sometimes you'll have like one big central return, like in an old hallway in a 1940s home, and that's it for the entire house. They don't have individual returns. And then a big problem we have here in basements, a lot of people will finish their basements, sometimes very lovely. They'll finish their basements, no return anywhere, just no return anywhere. So in the summer, it's not dehumidifying. Heat rises in the winter. It's still kind of cold down there. So it's a big problem in the basements. But yeah, for new construction, I don't think I've ever seen this idea of a jumper boot or jumper duct.
It's not something that I see a lot in Virginia. I'm not sure where it's common, but I do see it as being a valid solution to some situations, especially when, like, you're describing homes where they did not install proper returns to certain parts of the house. If you've got positive air, positive pressure in that room, it could alleviate some of those problems that come along with that.
Yeah. Now in the manufactured like mobile home industry, very few ducts, and they'll undercut those doors like this high. So you got like a 4 or 5, probably 5 is the max I've seen. I'm not making fun of mobile homes, but you'll have a 5-inch gap under those stinking doors, and the theory is just so there's always air moving and nothing's trapping in a certain room.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've seen houses where they literally had to cut more off the bottom of the door to get better air under there,
Yeah.
and a jump duct would probably.
In fact, in manufactured homes, correct me if I'm wrong, the return on some of them, it's usually a closet with a furnace. The return is the furnace. It pulls it right through that front door. Yeah. So they're noisy as heck.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's interesting. So it technically doesn't have a return system. It just comes right to the furnace.
Yeah.
With a filter.
Adrian is the host of Reliable HVACR, and he's actually has me on his show tonight. So hello to Adrian.
So you guys are up late.
He has a live show every week, but he has started recording it ahead of time. So he's still there. He still takes questions and chats with folks in the chat, but then he records the actual show ahead of time. So
nice.
Pretty cool.
I like it. But,
yeah.
And an HVAC, the R at the end stands for
refrigeration. Yeah.
Refrigeration. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's most of the guys in our trade consider them one and the same. It's still the same trade, but it is a whole different animal, especially when you go from, a guy like me that had my business. We did primarily residential, very little. We had some commercial accounts, but they still weren't rooftop units. They were still on the ground, a residential style. And then, you obviously you get more and more when you get into commercial and industrial, and then of course refrigeration. It just really is, to me, it's a whole nother trade.
I think so. Like a walk-in cooler at a convenience store. It seems like a different trade to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And that's what Adrian does. He takes care of, grocery stores and, restaurants and all these different types of, I think his father's started the business, and he does the cooking appliances and things like that, as I understand.
Smart. I absolutely love trades that there's no way computers, HI, could ever take these jobs away. You will always need repairs for residential, commercial, restaurants. I imagine there'll be smart tech in the devices that place a digital call to the service provider when error codes are coming up. Yeah, so I imagine that's happening in the background via computers, but they still would need an actual technician to come out and fix something, I'm sure.
Yeah. Garth says spray foam insulation doesn't sit well with us due to the limitations by covering up everything inside the wall.
True. It does have problems. So we're in a part of the country that has a lot of subterranean termites. Subterranean just means that they're living in the soil. They come up in the wood to do their damage as they're chewing on the wood, and spray and foam would completely cover any visible evidence of them. So by the time you discover them, your house is already all chewed up. So it does have some drawbacks for sure.
There's a company here, and I'm not trying to pick on them, but they are, I'm just stating facts. They are, when they encapsulate their crawls, they're laying plastic on the ground and then they're spray foaming the walls of the foundation and the crawl space and so on. And I heard from one of their customers that they had to go back and have that stuff removed and spent thousands of dollars to get that stuff removed. What a headache that was. And it's not a good way to encapsulate your crawl.
Have you ever played with that yellow spray and foam in a can? Great stuff. Great stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You so much as look as that product and it's all over you, your clothes, and it doesn't come off. Can you imagine? Josh, can you imagine having to clean, scrub, and scrape an entire cross face of sticky insulation? Burn the house down at that point. Just give
just burn the house down. Exactly.
That's too much work.
Burn it down safely. Get everyone out.
Exactly. Safety first.
Let's see. Garth says, sounds like a good idea versus running home runs to every room. Yeah, there are homes that you just physically could not run a return to every room. And, if it was built a certain way. So maybe those jump ducts. I think it's a cool idea. We just don't see it. And in fact, the first time someone even asked me about it on our show, I didn't even know what he was talking about at first. I had to go look it up and understand what it was. And I've heard it called different verbiages, but jump is usually a part of that verbiage some way. And it's just not something that we see a lot of around here. And Ryan says, I just wanted to remove some stale air from the bedrooms and add extra returns to circulate. Adding returns is always a good thing, in my opinion.
Now that you posted Ryan's comment up on the screen, we have one builder, and they build a lot in Michigan. They do a big central return in the middle of the house, and then above every single bedroom door, they put a return grill, but it's just a pass-through. It's just a hole in the wall, just a pass-through from the bedroom when the door is closed to get it into that hallway where the huge central return is. And those are passing code, and they're not having to put ducts throughout the house, so they're saving a lot of money. And that particular builder has a little bit of a bad reputation. There's other places in the house where you can see they've cut costs tremendously. They just took everything out, so they've saved a lot on their heating costs by not having to put cold air return ducts. Well, we call them cold air returns. They're just properly called returns, right? Or return ducts. But yeah, they don't have to put return ducts anywhere except that one central one that just goes right to the furnace.
I feel like I understand it, and I think I've even seen that before in RV homes and things like that. But I feel like that's you certainly aren't going to be able to close the door and have a whole lot of privacy, right? You definitely wouldn't want to do that in a bathroom.
Agreed. I agree. Depending on the direction that you install those louvers, it still gives you privacy to an extent. It's not great. It does look a little bit cheap, and I agree. It does feel a little bit like that RV or mobile home feel. Yeah, and they're selling a $350,000 new home, and you walk up and all the bedroom doors have louvers on the top.
Yeah, this is as I understand it. So they're gonna instead of what you talked about, where it's literally just a pass through with a register or boot, that they're installing a box in each room, or even this shows kind of like a register, and then the duct just goes up and over. So the idea itself, I'm sure there are times when it could alleviate some situations,
Yeah, no, it's good that you showed that. The benefit is they're getting around a wall and they're not having to put ducts throughout the house, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I think the science is sound. It should work, I would think.
Yeah. I think so too. I mean, I don't have anything bad to say about it. It's just not something that I see done a lot here because there are other solutions,
Yeah,
you know. But I definitely can think of issues that this would alleviate, that it would fix the problem of.
agreed,
So,
agreed.
Larry, you got any crazy inventions? Didn't you have one last time?
Maybe. Oh, real quick, I'm gonna jump on Garth's question. Garth Clark,
Okay.
Josh, could they have had a home inspector and the inspector wanted to see the foundation? I have heard of things like that where they had to remove the insulation. I've also heard of termite tube viewing stations. So so the homeowner wants spray and foam insulation because it's so excellent, but they don't want to be covered with termites someday and not be able to see them or not have future pest control inspections. So they put these clear little view stations around the foundation. The spray foam is still installed, but if termites crawl through that little viewfinder, they'll catch the shelter tubes. So I think that's smart. Inventions. Boy, I don't know. I am part owner of a pest control company here that's doing very, very well. Occasionally,
Nice.
we've talked about. Thank you. We're doing very well, up to almost 20 employees. There's been some inventions. We've never patented anything, but there's been a few inventions and ideas we've kicked around before. We have a lot of stink bugs in Michigan, especially spring and fall. They can really, really be a nuisance. So we'll see. There's only so many. I'm sure you feel this too. There's only so many hours in the day, and I'm a very busy guy, which I love. I wouldn't change my life for anything, but depending on what buckets are getting your attention on that particular day, you can only have so much effort, right?
Yeah. Um. Yeah, I'm gonna probably break out one of my maybe next week. I do want to go ahead and promote next week's show. Um, and actually let's take care of Gary's point here. He said that Larry made a point I never realized. Here in my 2-floor raised ranch, there are no returns in any of my bathrooms or kitchens. Now I know why.
Trust me, Gary, you do not want them in the bathrooms. The kitchens can go either way. It could be a good smell, but yeah, you don't want them in any rooms that produce odor.
I think I did a video called, I don't remember the exact, I think it was like 11 places you would not want to return in your home or something
Oh,
like that.
interesting. So there's more than 2.
So, and oh yeah, a garage would be one, that's against code for obvious reasons.
Yes, we do catch them in garages. Well, people try putting a heat run in the garage, and we say you could risk carbon monoxide poisoning. Yeah, you do want to be careful with attached garages.
Yeah. Yep. But I do want to quickly go ahead and promote next week's show. The company that purchased my company. So when I sold Griffin Air, I have the owners of that company coming on as guests on our show next week. So that should be a fun treat for those of you. They own a business that does lots of different things. They have plumbing, electrical, HVAC. They also have a whole segment that does septic, building and pumping. In fact, that's how they started. And so we've got the owners of that company. It's a brother and sister that own that business, and they're going to be guests on our show next week. So that should be a lot of fun. So we have a lot of questions popping in here, Larry, and I know you're reading them. I can see your gears turning there. So
I responded to one of them.
Oh, did you? Let me also say, as we wrap up the show, we're going to answer these last few questions. But those of you that have joined us before or are joining us for the first time, we wrap up every week with sharing good companies. There's so many bad ones, right? There's so many bad heating and air, plumbing, electrical companies. And we like to show love to the good ones. And so if you know a good company, go ahead and share them in the chat where they're located. You never know, someone in your area might see that comment. And if nothing else, again, we're just showing love to the good ones and highlighting them. So let's see. Ryan says, how is the jump duct circulating in the air? I would think it would need to at least have one duct run attached to the main return box. Yeah, it's not meant, as I understand, it's not meant to replace returns. It's more of those homes that are not circulating the air well enough, and you get rooms with positive air pressure. So you've got supplies dumping air into those rooms, and they're not getting enough air, it almost kind of becomes unbalanced, right? You got some rooms that are positive air, some rooms that are balanced fine, and maybe even some that have negative air, and you're just installing a way for that air to balance across and get that return air back to the unit. So as I understand it, that's kind of the thought process. And then I thought I saw one other. Emery wanted to know where you're at in Michigan, Larry.
Yep. Southwest Michigan, and she also asked about the climate. It's very seasonal. We have 4 very distinct seasons. Summer feels like hot, sweaty summer, and we do have plenty of air conditions and in-ground pools. Winter legit feels like winter. When you say Michigan, most people think of winter. They think of snowmobiles and downhill skiing. We have that as well. We also have lovely springs and lovely falls with all the foliage, leaves changing colors. So I love it. I love the 4 distinct seasons. As I'm getting older, I wish the winter season was shorter. As soon as we get past the holidays, I'm ready for spring. But yeah, I do love it. It's a beautiful, beautiful part of the country.
Maybe someday we will meet face to face, and I'll buy you dinner up there somewhere. How about that?
Thank you, sir. Yeah, that'd be fantastic. That'd be very fun. I'm actually going to Florida next month. I'm sorry, for a conference, a business conference. So I'll get some nice warm weather next month.
Very cool. Yeah, keep me updated on how that's going. That's cool.
Awesome.
Garth says we used to use those vents to eavesdrop. There's a hilarious Everybody Loves Raymond episode of Marie eavesdropping on I think it was Ray, or it might have been Robert, but I don't know. You like that show? I love that show.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. It's one of my favorite shows. Arch says you're no longer Griffin Air. Are you going to work for Daikin? If so, don't forget about the Daikin Fit package unit. Arch has been pushing for a package unit with inverter technology for years now. I think he's really wanting that. Nice. He lives in Arizona where they're crazy and they put package units on roofs. So he wants yeah. No, I for those of you that missed that, I did sell my business, and I'm currently working for a company doing trainings for local contractors. So I feel like, I'm going to get a little more fulfillment out of that. And then, of course, we're still doing this, right? YouTube is our priority here to help folks in making those big purchases and, all that good stuff. So very cool. So we are going to go ahead and wrap up tonight's show. Larry, thanks again for your time and joining us. Hopefully we can have you back again. And
thank you. I appreciate it. You always have the best viewers and great comments and questions. It's always the best. Thank you, Josh.
Absolutely. If you guys want Larry to be back as I don't know, you don't even feel like a guest. You almost kind of feel like a co-host when you're on, the way you answer questions and stuff. So if you guys want Larry back, please note that in the chat. Cause, I feel like we just always have good back and forth and answering these questions. Cause stuff I don't, which is not hard. And then, of course I can answer some of the heat.
We're both in the trade, so we could talk forever.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, again, I'll be back next week, guys, at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. Find out what that time is in your area. And I will have special guests, the new owners, the folks that bought my business. And we're going to have them on. That should be a special treat. So thank you guys. As always, make it a great week, and we will see you then.